students. So I'm happy to introduce Professor Rambu, UNESCO former Program Chief, Natural Sciences, New Delhi. Professor is having more than 40 years of experience in the field of environment, conservation, climate change, biodiversity, and natural resource management. He was coordinating South and Central Asia network of the Man and Biosphere program of the UNESCO as its secretary. Dr. Rambu is the recipient of many honors and awards, including starting from INSA Young Scientist Award of Indian National Science Academy, from former President Srimati Indira Gandhi ji. He joined with Mr. Gore, a Nobel laureate and former US Vice President, to train around 550 climate leaders from around 60 countries under the Climate Reality Project during February 2015 in New Delhi. Sir, I can introduce about him, about 40 years of his all careers. It's going to be my lecture. So then he is the eminent person, he is the right person to motivate us to take up the research and allied activities related to climate change, environment, ecology, and allied fields. Now I welcome Professor Rambu to deliver his lecture to the participants. Sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for accepting our invitation, sir.
Thank you, Professor Chandrasekhar. I have a few slides presentation, and I don't know whether I could just make your entire screen a window or tab. Yes, actually mostly I have been using.
Okay.
So we can help you, sir. If you can move your mouse cursor to the right bottom corner of your screen,
Okay.
you will get the option for present now.
Yes. So I just share your entire screen. I have said no. Let me just go. Yes. Present view.
Yes, sir.
Then,
present now. Yeah. Click.
What to window, to tab, or
Window, sir. Yeah, window.
Okay. Yes, I got it.
Yes, sir. We also got, sir. We also look. Yeah. Yes,
okay.
Sir. Now it's viewable, sir.
Yeah, this is in fact. Professor Chandrasekhar, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. In fact, we have been just discussing about the what is happening in the country in the field of research, particularly transdisciplinary research, and into context of ecology, and of course, climate change, biodiversity is closely interlinked. So I have been given this topic, impacts of climate change on biodiversity. So I will try to speak on my own experience plus whatever is happening around the world in this area. And this is the outline of the presentation. First, I will try to set a context, and that through prioritizing nature. Then sustainability, Agenda 21 and Sustainable Development Goals, climate crisis, biodiversity, nature-based solutions, finally UNESCO sites and way ahead. In fact, the context is that, in fact, I will take you to, as Professor Chandrasekhar was telling, some 40 years back when I was doing, along with, of course, Professor Swami and many other colleagues who are in the forefronts of ecological research in India. We were working with a group of researchers with Professor Ramakrishnan on the ecological adaptation of forest ecosystem. In fact, adaptation in the context of climate change, we are listening nowadays quite often, but During 80s, we were working on ecological adaptation and how forest trees, they adapt to different climatic variables, uh, their growth pattern, phenology, germination, their leafing and branching pattern, the whole architecture. And that was very unique contribution. And that was also linked to the sacredness of the area, the sacred forest groups, and also the shifting agriculture. Later on in UNESCO, and of course, very recently with the UNEP, I am involved with the designated sites, that is biosphere reserves and World Heritage Sites, particularly natural heritage sites and transboundary landscapes. So this is one context. The other context, which is the importance of nature and biodiversity, in the beginning of this year, in January, World Economic Forum 2020, they produced a report and identified top 10 risks which is going to impact the global community for next 10 years. And almost all the 10 risks, they are environmental. And as you can see, the extreme weather, climate action failure, natural disaster, biodiversity loss, human-made environmental disaster, these all 5, they are linked with the climate change and biodiversity. Data fraud or theft, this is technological. Cyber attacks, technological. Water crisis, again, societal and environmental. Global governance failure is geopolitical. And asset bubble is economical. We were just discussing about that economy has taken over the world. In fact, if we consider sustainable development or sustainability, there are 3 main pillars: ecology, economy, and society. And in fact, ecology, as you can see, has taken over the economy and society, all the social. Of course, in the following presentations, I will deal more interlinkages between these two. But current context of COVID-19, it has overshadowed all other risks and concerns. This year was to be the year for environment. It's time for nature, for biodiversity and climate emergency. This whole year was going to be devoted, but because of COVID-19, this is not the most important for environment. In fact, if you consider 22nd May 2020 International Day for Biological Diversity, this is another context for the current today's topic. The theme was our solutions are in nature of the International Year of Biodiversity 2020. And COVID-19 pandemic is a reminder that human health is linked to the planet's health. Coronaviruses are zoonotic. You might be knowing this. Some 60% of known, 75% of emerging infections, diseases, and around 1 billion illnesses, millions of deaths occur every year from zoonosis. That is why 2020 year is a year of reflection, opportunity, and solutions to build back better by increasing the resilience as we recover from COVID pandemic. And that resilience has to be based on nature. Again, the World Environment Day, it was also celebration of biodiversity, time for nature. And again, nature-based solutions offer the best way to achieve human well-being, address climate change, and protect the planet. Yet nature is in crisis as we are losing species at a rate 1,000 times greater than at any other time in recorded human history. Then I would like to take you to the Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. In fact, UN General Assembly on 25 September 2015 adopted Agenda 2030, which is transforming our world, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which contains a set of 17 goals and 169 targets covering a broad range of sustainable development issues, including poverty, hunger, improving health and education, making cities more sustainable, combating climate change, and protecting oceans and forests by 2030. This is a blueprint for our survival of the humanity in future. And these are our 17 goals. And as you can see, there are not a single aspect of our life and the environment is left over. So all these goals are so important currently. And you can see here the 5 critical elements of these goals: people, end poverty and hunger in all forms and ensure dignity and equality; planet, protect our planet, natural resources and climb for future generations; prosperity of economic aspects; partnership, how we are going to implement the agenda; and peace. These are the subdivisions, all 17 goals. First to 5 goals are MDG's Millennium Development Goals, which were adopted for a 15-year period at the beginning of this millennium, from 2000 to 2015, 8 goals. And only one goal, goal 8, was related to environment. And as you can see, there are unfinished businesses like poverty, hunger, gender equality. All those first 5 goals, they are related to those. Then 6 to 11 goals are new areas: water, energy, economic growth, industry, inequality, urbanization. These all are related to new areas. They were not in the earlier Millennium Development Goals. Then 12 to 15 is Green Agenda. These all 12, 13, 14 and 15, they are related to environment, sustainable production, consumption, climate action, life on land, life on water. These all are related to environment. And then 16 is governance goals, and 17 goal is means of implementation and partnership. So this is how these 17 goals are arrived at. And these are some of the drivers of the agenda. Universality. Goals and targets are relevant to all governments and actors, non-uniformly, rather differentiated. Every country, it's universal. This is applicable to all the societies, all the governments, and all the regions. Then integration. It's integrated. All the 3 dimensions, social, ecological, and economic, they are integrated into it. Leave no one behind. This is what is most important aspect of these goals. Reach beyond averages to most vulnerable and excluded groups. This is called as inclusion. Promotion and use of disaggregated data is the key. I just take you to some of these, our film heroes. How they are promoting Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 21. Hrithik Roshan. We have completed 5 years for these goals, and there is very little progress. In fact, if we consider in terms of nature and how these, like, nature is linked to all these goals, because we are going to discuss about biodiversity, and you can see that none of the goals are yet near any like the targets. The next is the climate change, and in fact states of planetary emergency, as climate change is driving entire planet to dangerous tipping point. And this was an article by Stephen Leahy in National Geographic last November. And it says that irreversible changes in Earth's climate systems, global tipping points, and existential threat to civilization. This was another one reported in Nature. Hothouse Earth, global temperature rise to 5 degrees centigrades. This is what is predicted. Sea level rise 20 to 30 feet, loss of coral reefs and Amazon forest. A global emergency response is required to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is required by Paris Agreement. And resilience and stability is dependent on nature. This is what Professor Chandrasekhar was telling the Al Gore. We are very closely, I have been working with this Nobel laureate who was former vice president. And I think you all might have seen this docu-film, An Inconvenient Truth. And if you haven't, this is freely available on internet. You must watch it. Film makes the compelling case that global warming is real, man-made, and its effects will be cataclysmic if we don't act now. Gore presents a wide array of facts and information in a thoughtful and compelling way, often humorous, frequently emotional, and always fascinating. In the end, An Inconvenient Truth accomplishes what all great films should. It leaves the reviewer shaken, involved, and inspired. Very inspiring film. Last COP25, in fact, next month we were supposed to have COP26, but that will be next year. COP25, this is very important, the call to make serious progress on climate action. I'm just reading the statement of UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Our war against nature must stop. This is what is concerned with climate and biodiversity. We must firmly demonstrate that we are serious in our commitment to stop the war against nature, that we have the political will to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. This is the goal of Paris Agreement. To put a price on carbon is vital if we are to have any chance of limiting global temperature rise and avoiding runaway climate change. This was very important to a statement in the last COP. And finally, what happened at the end? I am disappointed with the results of COP25. The international community lost an important opportunity to show increased ambition on mitigation, adaptation, and finance to tackle the climate crisis. But we must not give up, and I will not give up. I am more determined than ever to work for 2020 to be the year in which all countries commit to do what science tells us is necessary to reach carbon neutrality in 2050 and in no more than 1.5 degrees temperature rise. Hashtag climate action. This was the UN Secretary General's statement at the end of the COP. It was disappointing, but naturally there was a hope. That is why 2020 was devoted the year for environment. The super year for environment, rather, it was called, because a lot of things were going to happen. This is the scene from Paris Agreement. Now, almost out of 197, 185 countries have signed. US has withdrawn this. You can see the US then Foreign Secretary signing the Paris Agreement, holding her granddaughter. That he made this statement that this symbolic, as we are signing the Paris Agreement for our future generations. Hopefully, the new president of United States will rejoin. Climate change is real. The time to act is now. In fact, from biodiversity point of view, Millennium Ecosystem Assessment that was prepared by 1395 experts from 95 countries have made it clear that climate change is the second root cause of unprecedented loss of biodiversity. This was the first assessment of biodiversity. In fact, next assessment came last year. I will speak about it later. But they identified climate change as second root cause. First one is the land use, land cover change, in habitat degradation particularly. The second most important cause is climate change. These are some of the figures by various sources. Warming of 3 to 4, which is estimated by the end of this century, will eliminate 80% of wetlands and biodiversity therein. 15 to 37% species will become extinct by 2050. 25% of major crop varieties will become wiped by 2050. 50% of agricultural land will become unproductive. Hunger and malnutrition will grow. India, 250 million hungry and 52 million children malnourished. In fact, we are on the hunger index stands at 57, well below even Pakistan and China. So how, particularly for India, it will be very, very much worrying. And both the linkage between climate change and biodiversity is so, they are inseparable. And as climate change impacts biophysical environment, length of seasons, which impacts biodiversity at the species level in terms of phenology, distribution, and populations, and ecosystem level in terms of distribution, composition, and function. In fact, during our Northeast studies on adaptation, we have analyzed the habitat and species growth on these parameters way back. Protecting and conserving biodiversity and ecosystems are critical for maintaining and increasing the resilience and reducing the vulnerability of ecosystems and people in the face of adverse effects of climate change, as well as for maintaining capacity of ecosystem to store carbon. Spatial planning, such as development of protected area, in fact, that is very important. Spatial planning by declaring protected areas both on land, freshwater, and marine areas, that is very, very important. Among the impact, in fact, very recently, there is a study on 6th November published in Nature Communications that says that changes in geographical range of 16,919 species from 1700 to the present day, they predict that mammals, birds, amphibians worldwide have lost on average 18% of their natural habitat range as a result of, these are the modeling that by 2100, by the almost 1/4 of this species will be lost. And this is the recently extinct golden toad and Monteverde harlequin frog. These are the first victims of climate change. United Nations Millennium Declaration, again, as I was emphasizing on the nature, this also calls for respect for nature, and it urges prudence must be shown in the management of all living species and natural resources in accordance with the precepts of sustainable development. CBD. So this is also very important. I think you must know about this. There are three main aspects of CBD, which was in fact proposed during the Earth Summit way back in 1992 and signed by most of the countries by 1993 and 94. In fact, US signed very late. And this says that conservation of biodiversity, number one, the number two is the sustainable use of its components, and number three is the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of utilization of genetic resources. So these are the three main components of CBD. I think this is another aspect, how the species are various sources from various the impact of biodiversity. But most important is the IPBES, this very important report by Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem. And they have produced an assessment, first assessment report last year. And this is most comprehensive report since the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment. And it says that humans are driving 1 million species to extinction. This is very alarming. Agriculture is the biggest threat to ecosystems. And most worrisome is that global response is not sufficient, and we need transformative changes. There are opposition from vested interests. Several latest figures you can find on the net. This report very important, and this says that nature's dangerous decline is unprecedented. 1 million species at risk of extinction. In fact, Paris Agreement says that we must limit the global temperature to 1 degree Celsius. Even 1 degree Celsius is going to impact life from the level of ecosystem to that of genetics. And 1.5 degree to 2 degrees of warming goal of Paris Climate Agreement, the report warns the ranges of most of the world's species on land will shrink significantly. So very, in fact, some of the major drivers, as you can see here, both direct and indirect drivers. Among the direct drivers, land use, land and sea use changes, exploitation of organisms. That has become second most important driver now. Millennium Assessment Report said climate change as second, but exploitation of organisms. In fact, I think this is, you can link it with the COVID-like diseases, climate change, pollution and invasive aliens. And indirect drivers, mostly population trends. Number one, production and consumption patterns, weak governance and conflicts. This is how you can see among the major this birds, reptiles, amphibians, mammals, fish, how these drivers are working. The red one, you can see the habitat degradation. Invasive aliens is the blue one. Climate change is the pink ones. So you can very well see these drivers. Agriculture is a major driver of land use change. In fact, I'm not going into much detail, but I think this is very well understood that agriculture expansion in all the biomes is expanding at much faster rate. We had a decade and of biodiversity, and in fact, we had Aichi biodiversity targets. In fact, this decade was adopted in 2010 in Nagoya in Japan, and which is Aichi prefecture, where these this biodiversity targets were agreed upon. And there are 20 targets, and these targets are, none of these targets have been achieved. As you can see here, progress. All these 20 targets divided into 5 goals, and everywhere you can just see these red crosses. Very poor. Invasive alien species, there is some good progress, and the other one is protected with conserved areas. In fact, under the Aichi target, there was a goal of 17% land area to be protected and 10% sea areas. So among the landscape, out of 17, we have progress around 13 to 14%. Seascape, there is 7 to 8%. So there is some good progress. There is some progress in access and benefit sharing, and strategy and action plans. There is some progress because most of the countries, they have prepared national biodiversity action plan strategy and NBSAP, what is called as National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan. So there is some progress in that. Projected changes in biodiversity and nature's material and regulating benefits due to climate and land use change by 2050. These are some of the, as you can see, that the climate change is going to impact very high on species richness, which is red one. You can just see the negative trend. In fact, material as well as regulating services also, you can find all those negative trend. So this is a bit complicated, but you can very well see on the left hand side all the direct and indirect drivers, and these are on the right side. These are drivers. Left side is the actors or interventions that we take and leverage points, and how we can bring in the transformative change in order to conserve the biodiversity in the face of the climate change and various drivers. This is, I think you all know that we are at the close of 6th mass extinction. And in fact, a 2015 study reported the long suspected 6th mass extinction of Earth's wildlife is already underway. And a 2017 study calls on loss as biological annihilation and frightening assault on the foundations of human existence. So a lot of, you can just see dodo. Nowadays, it is called as dead as dodo. It was found in Mauritius. And when Europeans came there, they just killed all the dodos because they cannot fly. And their meat was very delicious. So dodo is extinct. Along with dodo, there was a tree species. It was a Cavalaria species that also became extinct because dodo used to eat the fruit of that tree. And once it used to pass through the stomach of the dodo, it used to only germinate. So this also, the tree also became extinct with the extinction of dodo. Similarly, this passenger pigeon is no more now. India is a mega diverse country. In fact, we have just 17 of the world's 190 or so countries contain 70% of its biodiversity. And we are part of that mega diverse group. And we have 2.4% of land area and account 7 to 8% of the species in the world, including around 91,000 species of animals and 45,500 species of plants that have been documented in India's 10 biogeographical regions. These are some of the figures of the species that are available. And of course, these global biodiversity hotspots. India also has 3 of 34. Now there are 37 biodiversity hotspots. And it's very important. We have the 2 great mountain chains, Himalayas and the Western Ghats, the Andamans, and Northeast is very much. And these are some of the ecosystem services that ecosystem provide. I'm not going to go into detail, but the most important part is the nature-based solution, which is currently being promoted all over the world. In fact, when I was with UNESCO, we produced a report on nature-based solutions for water in 2018. And some of the work here that I'm going to present is based on that report. This report you can download or you can read on the net UNESCO site as well. And working with nature to improve the management of water resources, achieve water security for all, and contribute to core aspects of sustainable development. That was how we approached the nature-based solutions for water. In fact, globally, nature-based solutions could reduce net emissions and provide 30 to 40% carbon dioxide mitigation needed by 2030 for a 66% chance of keeping warming to 2 degrees Celsius. This is so important that nature-based solutions can be a source for greenhouse gas reduction up to 30 to 40%, particularly carbon dioxide. These are interventions which capitalize on the contribution of nature to achieve societal and human development goals, including environmental protection, tackling climate change, and sustainable production. Millennium Ecosystem Assessment also emphasized on nature-based solutions, and CBD also has a framework for this, and IPBES also recognize the contribution of nature. So this is very important in most of the policy documents. You will find it. This is how it has been defined. They are inspired and supported by nature and use or mimic natural processes to cost effectively contribute to the improved management of our resources. The defining feature is not whether an ecosystem being used is natural, but whether natural processes are being proactively managed to achieve a conservation objective. NBS uses ecosystem services to contribute to a resource management outcome. NBS can involve conserving or rehabilitating natural ecosystems and or enhancement of creation of natural process and modifying artificial systems. So these are so important, and these are being very widely used. And this is how nature solutions can be depicted graphically. And you can find this in the IUCN, a very interesting paper written by the IUCN and defines this nature-based solutions. In fact, if you consider nature-based solutions, it's wetlands, which contain around 12% of the global carbon pool. But they are, in fact, being decimated at a very fast rate, 64 to 71% in last more than 100 years. And although about 30% of global land remains forested, at least 2/3 of this area are in degraded state. In fact, I had worked earlier in the East Kolkata wetlands, and these wetlands are the one of the models for, you can say, ecosystem based solutions and nature-based solutions, because they provide not only the treatment of city sewage, they also are the productive fisheries and productive paddy cultivation. Along with, there is third aspect is the solid waste management. All these three are combined together and they form a productive system. And there have been analysis of all the grains as well as fishes. And after traveling for around 100 kilometers, traversing through the city and the landscape, when it reaches those areas, the productive lands, they are completely treated. There are no heavy metal presence, and they are quite healthy fisheries. And this supplies to the city of Calcutta most of the fishes, almost 60% of fisheries, as well as vegetables and paddy cultivation is done there. So there is a lot of untapped potential for nature-based solutions in cities. Many cities, in fact, In Sydney, for example, there are several forests being created inside the city, and many buildings are converted to cityscapes, the naturescapes. Water quality improvement, as I said about the East Kolkata wetlands, there are several other examples where the non-point sources of pollution from agriculture, notably nutrients, these are transported through the nature, and of course the nature treats along with the solar systems, they treat sewage, water rich with nutrients, and provide very good example of low cost or no cost solutions for these pollution. There are several examples of how the nature-based solutions have been used for floods and droughts in many countries. But less than 5% are being spent globally on the NBS in water-related infrastructure, as you can see from this figure. And this is one example how varied and diverse and vast use of nature-based solutions can be in different situations, in forest, in grasslands, in urban systems, in wetlands, in agriculture diversification, ecosystem restoration, everywhere. Another important is the Paris Agreement and nature-based solutions. And in fact, every country is supposed to submit to the UN FCC their NDCs, nationally determined contributions. And 66% of Paris Agreement signatories they have submitted their NDCs, and they include nature-based solutions. As you can see this, but there is need for more into these NDCs. New Deal for Nature and People, that is again based on the nature, and this is taken from WWF report Climate, Nature and Our 1.5 degrees future, and zero loss of natural habitat, that is the agenda. I think the next biodiversity 2030 agenda, this is being included. Zero human induced extinction and half the negative ecological impacts. Biodiverse urban green spaces strengthen human immune system. In fact, in the COVID era, we are all talking about the immunity and resilience. In fact, all those societies which live closer to nature, they soil their hands, they live in nature. This is now proved scientifically that they are more immune and more happy. As this study says, that exposure to biodiverse natural environment carries ecological benefits. Green spaces with higher ecosystem functions give children better exposure to pick things from soil. For example, there are microbial compounds in soil that reduce stress and anxiety. Very important. Integrating natural climate solution in NDCs. In fact, there are several guidelines. Nature for Climate is a group which is working on this, that post 2020 the nature-based mitigation adaptation activities are included in NDCs. Every country has to submit. In 2015 Paris Agreement was signed. Countries submitted their intended nationally determined contributions, INDCG. That was 5-year plan that was intended. Now a firm plan that is called NDC, nationally determined contributions, that is to be submitted till 2030, and from 2021 to 2030. And in order to reduce greenhouse gases, particularly carbon dioxide, up to 40 to 60% by 2030. and by 2050 to achieve carbon neutrality, net zero carbon emission. UNESCO sites and climate change. In fact, I have worked with UNESCO on these very closely, and that is why I would very quickly go through it, because we have already gone up to 3 o'clock. But these sites, mostly biosphere reserves and global geoparks, they are very, very important. Many NDCs, as part of the Paris Climate Agreement, they include these sites. First, biosphere reserves, and they have a core zone, which is, you can see the dark green, then buffer zone, where you can have many of the activities in order to reduce pressure on the core, and then a transition area. These three zonations are the basis of biosphere reserve, and they are the perfect example of nature-based solutions. And worldwide, there are 710 biosphere reserves in 124 countries. India has 12. And they have all these three functions, which is very much close to the Biodiversity Convention, CBD. And they are used in large scale landscape management for biodiversity and climate change, both. And perfect example in Maldives. Maldives is a country with around more than 1,000 islands, and these islands are, in case of the worst case scenario in climate change, the country will be just wiped away from the map. That is why you can see in this picture, Maldivian minister, the cabinet is being held underground, just to show to the world how vulnerable we are. And Maldives declared one of their atolls as a biosphere reserve and committed that entire country and its exclusive economic zone will become a UNESCO biosphere reserve by 2030. So this is a huge challenge and huge pledge by one country which wants to become a biosphere, the whole country. Similarly, World Heritage Sites, there are in fact 1,121 sites. Out of that, 213 are natural, which has based on the biodiversity. India has 38, 30 cultural and 7 natural, and 1 mixed. 10 of the great World Heritage Sites that could be destroyed by climate change. In fact, there are reported by UNESCO several studies. And I will be just showing you the Great Barrier Reef. It is coral bleaching and loss of marine biodiversity in a very, very danger state. In fact, UNESCO has declared it as a site in danger. Sagarmatha National Park, Nepal, the Everest. This is also, in fact, threatened by climate change. Sundarban Biosphere Reserve. It's both Biosphere Reserve and World Heritage Site. This is again climate hotspot. Western Ghats, 39 sites with biodiversity hotspot value. This is again impacted by climate change and impacting the hydrological cycle and water. Nanda Devi and Valley of Flowers, there have been certain studies on this, and this is also one of the climate hotspots. So these were the some out of 10 identified, 5 are almost in India. You can very well say how vulnerable our natural sites are. Finally, I think we must, the world is in fact coming to a 2050 vision for biodiversity, and there is 2020 overarching framework, and you can see the theory of change on the right hand side. And by 2050, biodiversity is valued, conserved, restored, and wisely used, maintaining ecosystem services, sustaining a healthy planet, and delivering benefits essential for all people. to take urgent action across society to put biodiversity on a path to recovery for the benefit of planet and people. So as I said, countries have to prepare NBSAP, National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plans. But these action plans must be like, if we are going to have a post-2020 biodiversity framework, they must trigger transformative change by integrating NBSAP, NDC Agenda 2030. All these three must not be a separate document, but integrative document. That is what is needed. These are some of the, in fact, premises on which the 2030 biodiversity framework is based. In fact, the protected area coverage has to be increased by at least 50%. And by 2030, that is what is needed. And at least 30% of land and 10% of sea under strict protection. In fact, earlier, during the biodiversity decade, it was 15%, 17%, and hardly we have achieved 15%. So that has been raised to 30%. And oceans is not changed. It was 10%, and it has kept as such. In fact, most of these oceans are in the national jurisdiction, what we call as EEZ. But there are 90% oceans beyond national jurisdiction, which we call as deep seas. That is much more important, their preservation. There is a separate treaty, international treaty, which deals with this. Then there is a decade of ecosystem restoration. And in fact, next 10 years are critical in combating climate change and saving 1 million species from extinction. UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration is strategy identifies 10 actions that can make a difference. In fact, if you just go through the website of the decade, you will find all those 10 actions that is to be implemented during this 21 to 30, the whole decade. Then there is a decade for oceans as well. The United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. And this is again science-based management of oceans, which is in support of Agenda 2030 as well as Sustainable Development Goals. Here is the way ahead, the final slide. In fact, a poster to mark the first Earth Day 50 years back featured the quote, "We have met the enemy and he is us." This year's Earth Day, we realized that we cannot take the nature for granted. In fact, we are our own enemy. Man is the greatest mistake of nature. That is what said. We cannot afford to lose space or focus. Challenge of biodiversity and climate crisis will still be there when COVID-19 restrictions are lifted. The ambition of COP15 and COP26, COP15 for biodiversity and 26 for climate change, must be carried forward and built upon in 2021. Economic recovery plans must be green. There is greater appreciation of nature now. Nature-based solutions are the key for sustainability on Earth. Looking ahead, there are opportunities emerging from this pandemic, which, if seized, could set the path for a more fruitful 2021 super year. In fact, we could not make 2020 super year, but definitely we must make 2021 as a super year. And the hope is with the children. And you can see how effective they were in a presidential campaign in the US. The Fridays for Future campaign, the children, they and youth, they launched a campaign to defeat Trump because of the environmental and climate concerns. And this girl, Lissy Priya, is from India. She is also very, very active on this front, 9-year girl. So there are several voices from youth, and we need more such voices. Thank you very much. This is what I wanted to share with you.
Sir, sir, thanks for your wonderful and thought-provoking lecture, sir. Sir, now shall I, any questions shall we ask, sir, participants?
Yes, definitely. Most welcome.
Yeah. Now the participants can post your questions. Professor Nagaratnam, you have any questions?
1 second, sir. 1 second. 1 second. Are you hearing me, sir?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Dr. Ram Puj, we had a very wonderful listening of your presentation. That you had given an overall picture of the global thing, and also the UNESCO's interventions across the world, and also the listings you have mentioned. And we would like to know that how we can translate at local level, this to local level.
Yeah, in fact,
One second.
as I said, most of these global agenda, unless they are translated to local level, they are useless. Locally, country level, as I said, there are two instruments. For climate change, it's NDCs, which every country has to submit. And in India, NDCs are, uh, in fact, derived from the local level. It goes to the states. Every district, they have to bring into their status of the climate, both adaptation and mitigation measures. And similarly, you have the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan that is again going to be prepared. The process will start from 2021 based on the global framework. And that again goes from the panchayat level because you have National Biodiversity Authority.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes.
that is one. The other thing is the education and awareness, public awareness, which is much more needed. As you saw the youth, how they are like the Fridays for Future, how youth are spearheading the movements. Of course, it's not only the kind of campaigning or doing activism, but also contributing to the knowledge of biodiversity and climate change, taking up local issues, identified your own local issues. What are those issues? Are there any solutions? What are the threats? All those kind of critical thinking, finding solutions are very, very important.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sometime our Ministry of Environment and Climate Change taking us a larger project so that the issues of climate change and the environment and the nature is the topics have been discussed by the social groups. Like that's what we have been feeling it. But the small micro level interventions not been visible anywhere by the government. We are seeing. I am as far as my view. But is there any micro level interventions had been done with notable impacts, sir?
There are several examples at the micro level.
Yes.
In fact, last year we initiated a program with the help of some 100 schools, and this was the Earth Day is the 50th year of Earth Day, which was this year's 20th April, and this a group of students, Youth for Earth was the name of the program, and some 50 entries were finally shortlisted, and most of these entries were based on biodiversity and climate change. They had taken up local issues related to like conservation of certain either species or the forest, or making the recycling happen, the plastic pollution. Most of those local issues, these school children and youth, they had taken, and finally we on this on 9th and 10th September, we had an international webinar where some 5 of these children from India, 5 from South Asia, and 5 from globally. Some 15 children were asked to present their case studies. And they were really very exciting. Of course, there are very few, but still they are the sparks which can stimulate many others to work in these areas. And there are several other examples. Ministry of Environment, I do not know currently, but earlier they used to have National Environment Awareness Program.
Yes, sir. That we know. Actually, they are having the larger projects, like conservation of tigers and the elephant project, tiger project. Like we know that, and but the small level intervention at local level. What you said correctly about the intervention at panchayat level also. That was a good message from your presentation, sir.
Yes, in
That's
fact,
what.
National Biodiversity Authority, in fact, it is trying to create biodiversity registers at panchayat level. They are training. There are NGOs who are trained. They are in terms training panchayat these functionaries and preparing those biodiversity registers at the grassroots level. Hopefully, in fact, these registers they will become a repository of the biodiversity wealth of the country. And I think these are like in the biosphere reserves, most of the biosphere reserve, they are linked with educational institution.
Yes,
And
sir.
these educational institutions, they produce well researched reports for the management, for people's participation, for biodiversity conservation, for several aspects.
Okay, sir. Okay, yeah. And whenever I am basically from communication department, but the
Okay.
science is entirely new. Whenever we study or otherwise know facts about it, it is always new to us. But anyway, we have to communicate to the grassroots level. Scientists like you and Professor Chandrasekhar, from that only we are translating to the communities. And whenever we think that when we are going to the local level, intervening at local level, the problem is completely diverse. So that your presentation was actually somewhat helping in future us to intervene with meaningful impacts, sir. Actually, that's what I wanted to mention.
Yeah, thank you. I just saw that. I don't know why my camera is off all the time. But anyway, nothing can be. I am trying to put it on, but there is something wrong.
Yeah. Sometimes it happens, sir.
Yeah. So
Okay,
no,
what
thank you very much. I think you raised very good. A communication person can be a great asset for communicating all these findings and to the general public in simpler language. Translating science into the common man's language is much more important. All
He's,
these threats
yes,
is
sir.
going to impact the poor and the common much more adversely. Rich can find the ways and means to uh, either adapt or to find the means to sustain themselves, but poor will be adversely impacted by both climate change and biodiversity loss.
Yeah. So he was the recipient of President Award last year for best communication aspects, sir.
Oh,
So
thank you and congratulations. Yes,
he also part of this Stride program, sir. He is one of the investigator. So
Very good.
tomorrow is his day for this program. Sir, there are few more questions. Shall we take, sir?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Yeah, Shobna? Okay. So,
Hello, yes, sir. I'm here.
yeah, can you ask your question to Professor?
Yes, sir. Hello, sir. I'm Swapna. I'm
Yeah.
working as a PhD scholar in SECON.
Mm-hmm.
So, sir, I would like to know, like, is there any project, ongoing project, or any program so that, like, we can convey these messages to the local people of the fringe villages, or like, especially for the people who are staying inside the protected areas?
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
There are programs, as Professor was telling, by the ministry,
Yes, sir.
and I'm not very sure whether the state governments, they have also their own programs. So
Okay.
in that case, I think you can approach those agencies. Similarly, internationally, all these like this. I just saw on the net for the International Year of the Ocean as well as the ecosystem restoration. There is a call for proposals.
Okay.
So you can also join those calls
Okay.
and come out with your own programs.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sure, sir. Thank you.
The next question,
Sorry.
yeah.
There is another question addressed to you, sir, from Nirinas Jena. The question as it goes, sir, is it possible to avoid coal-based industries for development?
To avoid
Coal-based industries for development.
coal
Yeah.
coal
based-
based. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, coal. Oh,
Yeah.
in fact, most dirty fuel currently. Uh, in fact, if you just see the petroleum and coal, they are the major culprit of the climate change, and it is estimated that in fact by 2030 the world has to stop using coal and petrol both. And
Okay.
as per the Paris Agreement, because if you want to reduce carbon emissions from 40 to 60%, and by 2030 and 2050, in fact, no country must be allowed. All the coal must remain underground after 2050. So how this will be achieved for India and China, and of course, to some extent, of course, US now, they are the major producers. India's electricity is much more based on coal, and Indian coal is produces much more dirty fuel. Is considered as a dirty fuel. So that is why I think. Government of India has to reduce. In fact, no new leases for mining are allowed now in China and many other countries. India is still allowing, and it has to stop that. I do not know. India has to produce its nationally determined contribution within this next year, and by 2030, what strategy they adopt, that is to be seen. Coal is
Sir,
the major
next-
culprit, and it has to be completely abandoned. As per means, I am talking about a kind of a revolutionary step, but that is what, if you want a climate solution, you have to adapt that.
Sir. So, now another question from Maithili. Maithili, can you ask your question?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Maithili. You can post your question. Yeah. Sir.
Sir,
Yeah.
am I audible?
Please.
If a species goes extinct due to climate, are we sure that the climate change is the major,
Sir,
major
yeah.
cause for that extinction,
Yeah,
sir?
some audio problem, sir. Sir, I will read.
And
Yeah.
what is
You mute your mic, Maithili. I will read your question. Sir, the question
Yes.
is, if a species goes extinct due to climate change, how can we be sure that the climate change is the major cause for the extinction? What is the confirmation process for that?
Yeah, very typical question. How the in fact, we know the geographic range, the temperature range, the flowering, fruiting, the phenological patterns, if there is due to climate change, and because of these factors, climate change impact is very obvious on these, some of those ranges, the phenology, the behavior, reproduction and growth of the species. And if these are impacted, in fact, we can very well associate that the causative impacts and the resultant extinction due to climate change. As I was telling, in case of the classic example of dodo, which became extinct, and with the extinction of dodo, the tree whose fruits were being eaten by dodo, that tree also became extinct. So similarly, in the context of climate change, all those causative factors that is responsible for extinction can be attributed to climate induced extinction. I hope that is clear.
Yes, sir. So, any other questions from participants? If no more questions, so on behalf of the participants, on behalf of Madurai Kamaraj University, on my own behalf and my teachers' behalf, I thank Professor Rambuj for his wonderful, informative, thought-provoking lecture to the participants. Thank you very much, sir, for your kind acceptance and your valuable address, sir.
Thank you. Pleasure. Great pleasure indeed. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, dear participants, please, the next session is going to be starts 7 o'clock. Please join with us by 6:45 or 6:50. So, since we are arranging the resource person from the foreign country, you should not come and join after the meeting starts. So, this is the request only. Kindly join 5 minutes before 7 o'clock. Okay. So, this evening 7 o'clock, the next lecture is. Okay. Are you audible? Any response? You can unmute and you can say something. Yeah. Yeah. Settle. Yeah. Okay. All right.